The Cult of Natureboy is a 4-part docuseries on the now imprisoned social media influencer and cult leader Eligio Bishop, aka Natureboy, that premiered in April of 2026.
Aside from the strange and bizarre behavior Natureboy had his cult participating in, he turned what he promised to be freedom for members into a place where women would become second-class citizens, there only to serve the men of the group.
And by men, we mean mostly himself, because Natureboy would feel entitled to make each woman his conquest, using other women to literally beat them into submission.
And if you hear me laughing, it's because this thing is just so outrageous.
It's just absurd. It's crazy that this could even happen. But the craziest thing about it is that it was like streamed online like a soap opera for the entire part, like all of the physical stuff. Well, except the behind the door, closed door stuff. But I even understand that they were making money off of that somehow too. I don't know if they were on OnlyFans. Y'all who are experts at Carbonation and Natureboy and all that, let us know in the comments, because the docuseries, only covers a certain amount. And just so you know that this docuseries, well, the description of it is: a rising social media star named Eligio Bishop, also known as Natureboy, used his platforms to recruit followers into a group he called Carbon Nation, encouraging them to abandon their families and join his vision. And it is available on Hulu, Disney. So if you have those streaming platforms, you can see it. And we have done 2 different videos on this. Our first video is a review of the actual docuseries, so you know whether it's even worth your time to watch. So that'll be linked in the description. But also, this one is just, we got to just focus on what's going on with the women, what happened to the women, because it's just crazy. The question is, how is it that so many people fell for this? And the fact that they literally left behind their lives to join this cult highlights that there's just so much wrong with where we have been in culture for the last bit of time, and how vulnerable, especially young people, because it was mostly young people, are to this.
I'm Heit.
And I'm Cheri.
And you've discovered Axiom Amnesia.
We want to thank all of the supporters who helped to make this video possible. If you want your name to appear alongside these contributors, make a one-time donation via Cash App, or you can head on over to patreon.com/axiomamnesia to enjoy all of the benefits of becoming a monthly subscriber. So what was he doing with the women? Let's just cut to the chase. So his online streams and videos attracted people to come live in these tropical paradise type of places, and supposedly to be free like him, to be free with nature, to come and, live like that, right? And so he was in different places in Belize and Costa Rica. He was in Costa Rica, though, when he first started to attract people, and then the group moved around to these different places, right? So naturally, you have these young men and young women in a group going to be attracted to each other, right? And they're good looking, all of them. So then they began to couple up, and Natureboy was actually setting up the different couples. Okay. Now, we haven't talked about his philosophy, but you mentioned before that how would you describe his philosophy? Like, what was he teaching them?
I don't know, but like a mixture of, different types of, beheld the pale horrors, the Dr. CB stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's just like a conglomeration of all this different popular theories.
And self-help wrapped up in it.
Self-help, new age, manifestation type of stuff.
Right. And so at first he was, hooking the people up with different, like coupling them up, right? But later, he started taking all the women for himself when he separated the men from the women in the group, and he moved into the house with the women. Who, by the point that this happened, the women, some of them were the quote, the actual wives, like as in legal wives, or the kind of professed wives within the group of the men. And he was, just having whoever he wanted to have. You all, we have an exclusive catalog of videos that not everybody has access to, but our members do. Our Patreon members, our Axiom.app members, our YouTube channel members. So go to the link in the description if you want access to these over 100 videos that we have available for you guys. And according to the women, as they talked about it in the docuseries, they didn't want it. You know, so it was very weird. But anyway, so the story we talked about previously was incomplete in that, you know, it really seems to only follow it gives you some general stuff up front, and then it gets into like by the time you make it to the 4th episode, which is the last episode, it follows Janae, who was known as Heit Cheri in the group, right? It follows her arc because it's what happens to her that leads to his imprisonment. And, you know, he is in prison for the rest of his life with no possibility of parole plus 10 years. So he's not getting out unless something changes on appeal or something like that. And so that's really, to me, what the story was. It was also of EJ was her name in the group. They, you know, she was actually his legal wife, and she had a baby with him also. So other than that, you know, some of the former members spoke up in here, but that was kind of the arc really of the entire docuseries was, hey, this is how they got together. This is what was going on. And then a lot on EJ up front. And then we get to hear about later Janae, Heit Cheri, when, you know, the things that led to going on in the end. So let's just talk about what it sounds like was typical there. So you have the men and the women, and they're going around, they're, you know, sleeping outside in tents, and Nature Boy would go to the tents with women, and EJ says that she was like the queen of the, you know, he took her from somebody else in the group basically, and then he made her his queen. So he was the leader. She was like the top woman. And in the beginning, there wasn't all of this talk and conversation and discussion about like, oh, you know, women are second-class citizens and all of that. None of that was going on. So somehow it turned from you're getting your freedom to you get over there as a woman and you're a second-class citizen. The men are over you. You can't be single. The men can be single if they want to. But you have to couple up with one of these men. So really, they got to take their pick of you. You might be able to have some influence, but you got to couple up with one of these men. And that's what had happened with EJ, was she was hooked up with a guy that she really didn't want to be with. And then she wound up getting away from him and then being with, Nature Boy. But after this, once he transitioned to the men and women being in separate houses and him being in the house with the women, the other thing that's important to know is that it sounds like he went both ways. So and this probably was smart on his part to separate the men and the women so that he could go over by the men when he wanted to, and he could go over by the women when he wanted to, because he was quite physical, like abusive, if you will, to all of the members whenever they were out of line, and sometimes not even when, they didn't have to do anything. It was just him exhibiting his control and exerting his control over all of them. And he would started talking that red pill type of stuff. Women are here to serve the men and all of this and that, and just
right.
Craziness. So it was like a bait and switch for the women, at least.
Yeah, and is it that he started off that way? Because I think in the docuseries, that's how they try to position it. That this was his plan from the beginning. He had a master plan, that this is how it would play out.
I think that's giving him too much credit. I think he was learning, making stuff up as it went along. When you watch videos, because they say that, there are some of the weird videos where he's got them lined up and they're basically showing their allegiance to him. By the way, y'all, he was saying he was God. He was, basically the Messiah. They were essentially worshiping him. Yeah. It was craziness, right? But there were parts where I looked at him, it was unclear exactly, but either he was playing a part and understood that, and I kind of leaned toward this, right? He's like, look, I know I'm online. We make our money by giving a show. And he was giving a show, because what was it? What rap line did he repeat in there? Remember?
Y'all gonna make me lose my mind?
Yeah, y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here. Like, he was just saying anything.
Right. So it was like, I was talking about the hodgepodge of ideas, right? Some of it was, just modern media, right? It was a bunch of rap stuff. They would sit around and listen to the music that we listen to. You know what I'm saying? Not just, oh, we're this special type of people who in tune with the frequencies and the vibrations of the earth, right? It's you're listening to the same ratchet music we listening to, even the stuff maybe it's Mozzie or whoever with the pushing P stuff, right? About, I don't know what it's about, but that seemed to have influenced him to the point where it's like, all right, now I gotta have all the bitches. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and that's basically how he was acting.
And it's like, as he came across things, then he would just start to incorporate that, or stuff that would just be good on camera that actually is, and stuff that may be good, right? Oh, we have this structure. We show this. You just think about how many times things get reshared when a bunch of black men just wear suits and walk down the street.
Yes.
Then it's like, oh my God, this is so powerful. He was doing the things that we as black people worship and praise and look up to and share all the time.
Yeah.
Right? Which makes it
even when they were like all lined up in some nondescript tribal clothing and standing there all still in formation, like that was a very attractive look that attracted a lot of people to the channel. And then they're reciting mantras, right? It is impressive to see it. And so, you know, even though it was like only 10 of them standing there.
But as a work of art, right? It's impressive if you see somebody put on a show.
Yeah.
When you go to like the fashion shows and stuff, they're putting on these events, and that's what they perfected in, you know, their online presence.
Now, the part that they don't tell you in the docuseries that I think I understand to be true, y'all go to the comments and correct me if I'm wrong, but I understood that basically because of all of everybody sleeping with everybody else there, that, you know, they were passing around the different, you know, infections and stuff like that. One of which you can't get rid of, not the one with the 8. Well, they both have H's. The one that'll give you some, you know, sores or whatever. That one that's recurring
not
and non-life. Right. That's
yeah.
recurring and non-life threatening. Right. And by the way, because we're talking about some things that are, you know, do not use the R word in the comments, because it's just not going to go through and we'll never see your comment, you know, because certain, you know, YouTube is going to filter out certain words. So words that seem like they may be off topic, you know, give us the idea, but please do not use that actual word, because it's just going to be pointless and we won't be able to see what you wrote. But at any rate, and that's the reason why we actually aren't saying it, because some of y'all have been in the comments before about sensitive things. No, I want you to say the word. Don't talk around it. We're trust and believe that if it wasn't for that type of censorship, we would be. Okay. Yeah. But it's, you know, look, we got to abide by the rules of where we're putting this information. So anyway, want us to break down the movie of your choice? You choose the film, we do the analysis, and you'll be credited as the executive producer. And you're also going to get a shout out on screen. The link to grab one is in the description. Our deep dive on demand is only $75. That's what they were doing. They're all just, you know, and it's not, I didn't judge it, except, you know, passing stuff around is not so great. But I didn't judge them being young, all being together, because how is that different than, you know, Woodstock, free love, hippies of the 70s, you know, living, you know what I'm saying? Every generation kind of has something like that. You know, there was Freaknik once upon a time. We did a video on it, and we'll put a link to that.
I did read something that said, like, people from, like, you know, those, I don't know what they call it, like the love, whatever groups,
free love,
right? Yeah, the free love movement. Women were coming talking about how they were taken advantage of, and, you know, if you know what I'm talking about.
Well, see, because I feel like there is no scenario where you can have people say it's all free, where you're still able to say no if you can be out muscled by somebody there, because everybody isn't decent. And you got to think about the people who would be attracted to it. And so especially the men, because if you think about a man is watching this online and he like, so basically, if they say I could come out there, then I could come out there and I get to sleep with all these women I see here, and I ain't got to even choose one.
And I can have as many women. I don't have to pay anything. I just show up with me, and then I just can live my life, knocking down all these women.
Now, You don't have to pay anything, but he's taking your debit card and your cell phone.
If I ain't got nothing
up front, but if you didn't have anything, then you give what you have.
So somebody was like, I had $3,000 on in my bank account, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was EJ.
Yeah, she gave him $3,000.
All right, so $3,000, and then I live in Costa Rica and Nicaragua for 3 years.
Yeah,
that's kind of a good quote deal, right? From the male perspective, right? I give up $3,000. I get 3 women. You know what I'm saying? Or
however many, and they could be rotating
in these
through.
Places.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
Now, from a male perspective, what he don't tell you is that he's going to be hitting you up too.
Yeah.
And there will be pressure to, for you to be getting with him. See, that ain't what you know up front.
One of the things they said, I didn't know about this, right? Where it was like, hey, how many of you would swallow Nature Boy seeds to the men?
Right.
And he was like, and they were like, most of them said yes. So when it wasn't presented as they did it, but what I took away from that was that they did it.
I took away from that too. I'm like, they did it, and you did it too. The dude who said, I believe it. So that's just wild. But see, like as a man, I feel like you got off easy with this. The women didn't quite know what they were getting into up front, because you're like, oh, and then I could couple up and it could be okay. And you didn't know you were about to get ran through. And I mean that, I don't mean that disrespectfully, and forced, and then like they're just saying that basically when Nature Boy, whenever he wanted that pretty much that would be the case.
I think it happened to the men too, but the men don't get the benefit of victimhood, right? So the women,
of claiming
I'm not trying to diminish it, right?
Yeah.
But a woman, if this happened to you, it could be like everyone will feel sorry. Not everyone, but people will generally feel sorry for the women. Oh my God, I can't believe this will happen. But the men, this happened to you, we're laughing, right? You're going to be ashamed because that's just the way of
how the society goes.
So this thing happened to you, and you should have been able to not have it happen to you.
Well, my question is, what is the culpability of people who participated in these things, right? By that I mean,
that's always the question.
It was like the women would coerce the other women to, it's like the group think, the women would coerce the other women. And even EJ said that her role as the queen at the time was to then be essentially she described like the madam, the person who's the go-between to get the women to come and be comfortable with hooking up with Nature Boy. You see,
I guess, it depends on the consequences, right?
So what is the culpability, and where does victimhood end, or are you both a victim and a perpetrator? People ask this question with Cassie and Diddy, right? And other situations. And I don't know that I have a black and white answer to that, but I would say that there was a situation where one of the girls was saying that she was actually a virgin, and that he wanted to, Nature Boy decided that this would be for him. He would be the first one. And that EJ should be holding her hand while he does this. And EJ didn't want to do it. She didn't want to do it. And it happened.
Yeah. I don't know. I would have to kind of bring it back to this idea where people say, when we watch slave movies and stuff, if I was back in those days, they would have had to kill me. And whether or not that's what happened in this situation, in the situation that you found yourself in, right?
Right.
Because it's kind of generally the same idea. If you have the wherewithal to get out of the situation, right, and the ability, the capacity, and you don't, then maybe there's some culpability, right? But
what about
saying
the mental
you would do something
aspect?
Versus but that's my point. But saying you would do something versus actually being in a position and doing it, it's two different things.
So what I liked about the men talking about it was that they were like, I was brainwashed. I recognized this after this time. This is what's I like that they just came out and said that.
Yeah, but
because I think that you can't run away from the fact that you were letting somebody else, like you were influenced.
I'm still unclear at the end of this. What caused them to leave? Right? They were there up until he was arrested.
Yeah,
and then
well,
all of a
but
sudden,
when he's gone, the money is gone. You don't, because I remember they didn't have ways to take care of each other. They were still trying to do stuff online. But let's talk about it. Nature Boy is the attraction. They were people who were watching and donating, but especially just people who were watching and they were able to get the ad revenues off of those views were watching because it was a train wreck, and it was a train wreck because he was acting a fool on camera.
Yeah.
And when he goes to prison, who's going to be managing it?
Well, then you could still have that same lifestyle that was attractive in the beginning of this freedom and the nature and things, right?
Well, you'd have to know how to do it. They barely knew how to
He
grow
didn't know how to do it. He wasn't doing it, right? So what they were doing, they had a whole house and they were sleeping in tents.
Well, and I guess that's the ones who are still there. Like like his philosophies, that mantras and stuff they were repeating, that did outlast him going to prison.
Now just
for
go
a
to
while.
Panama and just say the same things that he said in 2017.
Maybe.
I'm not saying to do it, but I'm saying if you
but
want
like
to
maybe it could work. But then they had gotten thrown out of countries, and who knows?
It don't matter. You don't have to get thrown out again, right? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
he's not there to ruin everything.
Well, you could still live the free life, but you got to have a way to make your money. But if that was enough, you'd be able to do it.
Well, the point is,
but the lesson is that anybody who's in charge is likely to eventually abuse the power that they would have over people like this.
Well, that's the point.
The only reason it works is because he was taking people's cash card as soon as he got there. They're using that to kind of get things off the ground. It works because people are tuning in to see you get smacked in your face.
But after you grow this big, you still have the audience, or at least a portion that's still going to want to see what then happened after this guy left, and this group still has whatever brand recognition that it already garnered, right? So because I'm sure they still over there getting donations or something and getting views.
They probably are. And there are people, I was just reading online, there are people who still kind of are following him, believing in it.
Right. So the thing is too, somebody tried to say in a docuseries, cult building 101 or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But it wasn't laid out. But one of the things that we're talking about now is basically how it progressed to what is, right? So the philosophy is twisted. They got their little signs, and then they establish their God that they're prey to, right? Which is unattractive to people nowadays. So that stuff will have to be reverted, right? You got your colors and your philosophy that was built up over time. Mm-hmm. But if it was more of a generalist thing that could be walked back, then it would be something, I guess, more appealing.
Yeah. So because we didn't specifically talk about it, let's just talk about how he winds up his eventual downfall. So we have Janae, who's Cheri, in her changed name in the group. And so she basically wanted to leave, and she was R-worded by Nature Boy after she tried to leave. So she tried to leave, and then she comes back to the house. He does this. And then after which, she left the next morning. And after she left, then the internet detective, Jen Ye, contacted her and told her about that Nature Boy had also posted revenge porn. Okay. And did that presumably in retaliation for her leaving. Right. And so then Jen Ye encouraged Janae, not to confuse those two names, to file the report with the police that would eventually take him down, because she had been in contact with the police, and the police were like, look, we need a victim. We can't just be going off your word. You done watched online and whatever. But Jen Ye had been.
But they'll send a CPS to your house.
Yes, and they did. And so she was calling the police. She was putting out flyers. She was really an activist in terms of in person putting out flyers to say, hey, there's a cult in the neighborhood, and to try to warn people and stuff like that.
But I think they just make excuses, right? Because police have the same access to the videos that everyone else have, and they arrest people on a whole lot less than they would have been able to arrest them.
So the police would come, and then they'd say everything is okay and invite the police in to look around, and everybody would say everything is fine. And then after that, they'd leave and, continue to do what they do. My thing is, it's video evidence of what is happening. It's being streamed.
Yeah.
So how could it ever be acceptable? We have merch. Y'all already know this, but this is one of my favorites. The Axiom Amnesia logo hoodie. And we also have t-shirts and mugs and all sorts of other things. So if you would like to support the channel, please visit axiom.app through the link in the description and support the channel. Well, but anyway, the detective who wound up being part of the investigation that eventually successfully prosecuted him said that everybody in the police force was well aware because, they had been to the house a million times and nothing had happened, and also Chantel, who is the T, is her name on YouTube. She is also an internet detective, and she worked with the detectives, like you were pointing out before, archival footage and stuff of what they had been doing all along during their investigation. And in DeKalb County, that's the Atlanta area. So then eventually the police raid the house. They arrest everybody. They really only wanted Nature Boy, so I think everybody else was let go. Some people, as a result of this, scattered and left, but pretty much members just kind of started falling off along the way. And, they were left. But the ones that you see left behind, by then there was, because see, EJ is the one who was the queen earlier on, and she had the baby with him and everything like that. But by the end, when he's arrested, there's a different queen, Malia. And see, when I'd seen the videos, she was the one, along with a couple of other women, were the ones saying they were his wives. So I was always very confused. When I saw this, I was like, well, who are you guys? Because I didn't see them in the footage that I had been, when I had been following it. But the reality is, to me, I'm like, okay, so all of these women got together, and like I said, when one would try to leave, the group would, the video I saw with my own eyes, it was like a live stream, was of the women following the girl who wanted to leave and this is in Atlanta, after she left the house, walked down the street. They followed for her for a few blocks, and they were like, girl, come back. You got to do. And then she eventually did come back. Yeah. And in the process, I believe, if I recall correctly, the police were called and they came and said everything was okay. She's going down the street yelling and screaming at first. But of course, it made for, quote unquote, good streaming because it was some, spectacle. But I think that girl wind up going back to the house. Yeah. But Nature Boy wasn't on the street telling her to come home. Right. Right. It was everybody was so psychologically, I guess, involved with this.
Exactly. At what point does that absolve you? Right. Yeah. Sort of like if I join a gang, can't you just call it a cult? Because it's sort of run the same way. There's threats of violence if you leave, and there's violent consequences to your actions.
And then is there a conspiracy? Now, I tend to so as far as the women, and I told you I talk about the men, but as far as the women are concerned, I have a lot of empathy, and I feel like it's questionable if you could call them in any way responsible. The men I feel differently about. Because the men, and because they physically did things wrong to the women also, not just Nature Boy. Okay. They felt free to do whatever because he was red pill telling them these women are here to service you, to do whatever, So, yeah, so I feel that they are more responsible. And if there is a gray area to be had, that they too or somebody should, it wasn't just Nature Boy doing wrong.
What you just described to me was the women too were doing it.
Well, they were, but I feel that because the women,
but he was doing stuff to the men too.
Women lack the physical ability to resist as compared with men
when
in
it's
general.
A group of other men.
So you're saying that it's possible that all the men held the
if one man something,
down
then
for the man to do it,
right? Or there's the threat of that, right? Because the only thing we're saying is that the women did the things because of the threat of what could possibly happen.
Yeah, and I think that they did. I think it was definitely because of the threat. I don't think it was because they wanted to. I don't think any of them wanted anything to happen. But I don't know.
That's what I'm saying with the men too. But that's why the police do nothing. And he was only convicted of the one thing. However, he was sentenced for everything, right? But everybody seems to be involved in this thing and have accepted it with this some verbal agreement, right? Mm-hmm. Or some verbal social contract. And that's all on video of it happening.
It just made me so disgusted like that. Because I feel that if a woman wants to go and if she wants to live free love, I feel she should be able to do that. But I don't care if you live in free love or not. You should be able to say no, and nobody should be able to force you to do something you don't want to do.
Right.
When you clearly have stated you don't want to do that. And they get you isolated. They get you where you don't even have your cell phone. You can't even call for help. You know, and that's the thing I hate about this.
That's what's wrong with the laws, right? But then adjusting that or making certain changes, then you wrap up innocent people, right? So it's kind of where you have to kind of allow for some of this to happen so that innocent people aren't, you know, roped into the law.
Yeah. I'm discussing it and giving my comments, but I don't have an actual answer. But I feel like I kind of feel like I want to see more, especially some of the men who did things to the women. You know,
we didn't hear. Did we hear anything that the other men did to the women?
Well, okay, so you had the guy with the light colored eyes and the girl, and I'm sorry, the names escaped me in the moment. But you have the guy with the light colored eyes who was married to the one lady.
Okay.
You know, she said in the documentary that he did things to her. And that it could be that he hit her, he forced her, you know. So she says that he was following what Nature Boy was saying do, and he wasn't always kind to her. Yeah, she said that in the documentary. And, well, you know, I'm paraphrasing.
Okay, so you're saying she
and
said
I think
he
that
hit her.
Things were deliberate at a minimum, and I think that
what do you mean at a minimum?
Well, because it could have been that he R-worded her. I don't know.
Yeah, but what did she say he did?
She said.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'd have
or
to
do
go
you
back
not remember specifically?
I do not.
You remember that he did something that was abusive.
He did something abusive to her. Yes.
Yeah.
So and this was supposed to be her husband in the group, and I think they actually are legally married. I'm not sure about.
Oh, I think it was Janae and that guy are married still.
You know, but yeah.
So was it Janae or
the
other lady?
I think it's the other one. But yeah. So I just feel like I don't know. I feel a little differently. And especially he didn't start in the beginning. He came when it was clear, like, look, I can get me some chicks. I can come over here. You know, it's like he had watched long enough.
Chicks, right? Hey, y'all, they having this sex party over there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going over there.
And see, that wasn't the crime. It was just the...
You know what I'm saying? But I'm saying, like, at that point, it just looked like y'all having a party out in the woods. And I want to go and get in on Freedom Summer or whatever.
Yeah, right. So it's just, it's a lot.
So, yeah. But I think it's where is brainwashing a legitimate excuse, right? Because at what point do you just say that now this person has no autonomy, they have no decision-making ability because somebody else done somehow caused them to not be able to make decisions on their own? Because, you know, there is no clear line, there is no test. There are situations where people have been in a position and you don't just say that, hey, yo, they have been brainwashed so that they don't get any of, you know, they're not culpable in any of these crimes. And one would be the DC sniper, right? Like, at what point do you say that a child, right, wasn't brainwashed by a grown man who was going around and had their own issues, right? So then we have adults, and then you're like, hey, they were just brainwashed, so everything that was happening, they have no culpability in, or they were just brainwashed and they decided those decisions deemed them not to be victims.
I think if it had gone the way the police would have it gone, because this ain't the first time police have seen cult stuff.
Right.
You know, I think if it had gone the way it ordinarily goes, is that prosecutions are made as a group, right? Okay, you know, they went and they did something to this group of people, or they didn't, and then you have people
separate group,
right? But you know, the people signed up and participated. They look like they're there under their own will. I mean, and this is the same. This is the same problem as when, you know, like whether it's Scientology, whether it's other groups that people join, and then they isolate them from their family, and their family is like, well, they've been kidnapped, they've been whatever, and the people say there's nothing we could, the quote unquote authorities say there's nothing that we can do because they say they want to be there, and they're voluntarily and they're grown.
And you can't go both ways. Which ones are which brainwashed ones are victims, and which brainwashed ones are perpetrators?
So that's, to me, part of the problem with this prosecution and prosecuting, like, who brought her back.
They prosecuted the crime that they had.
And they had beaten her. They beat her. The group beat her.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? At one point.
Well, at one point, but not for the thing that ultimately being charged on, right? I tried to leave, and he forced me to stay, and he did those things to me, and he put out the video, and that's the only thing that was prosecuted. That's the only thing that wasn't voluntarily done, right? So if you like slap her, right, then you get slapped. Or, you know, when he's just like slapping somebody, and then you're like, yes, daddy, like, what are you to believe about this?
That's just,
right, if it's a victim or not.
Yeah. It's hard to make heads or tails of it. If you're missing videos because YouTube isn't giving you your notifications, go ahead and subscribe to the mailing list. The link is in the description. You're going to get an email that will tell you all of our recent videos so you never miss one again. Now, I know some of you may be listening. You're like, it's actually unacceptable and this and that. Yeah. And I agree, it's unacceptable. But to find the line where it's clear that it's not, because see, the women in retrospect say, I didn't want to do any of this. But you did it and you stayed, and I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying that makes it complicated to prosecute some aspects of it, because when there were opportunities to go, but it's in the same vein as DV, right? It's part of DV.
Exactly.
You know, so it's clearly documented how long it takes, especially, you know, typically women, right? Because that's who we're talking about in this situation, to leave, how many times they have to try to leave. And also, because if we look at what, you know, we've seen in the news, what the potential is for them losing their lives if they leave. And even though nobody in this situation, as a result of the leaving part in that, lost their lives, there was an older woman who joined the group who had a heart condition, who wind up before they were back in Atlanta, but when they were out in the one of the countries, out in the wilderness in the tropical zone, who died out there sleeping in a tent and probably wasn't having her medication and stuff. But you don't know, like, if they're beating you to the point that these people were claimed to have been beaten, then, I mean, it only takes one accident.
Yeah, and it's time to victim blame. Not to victim blame, but you can't find yourself in that position. You have to not end up there, right? So you
proactively is what you're saying.
Yeah, it's like, it's sort of, you know, I say it every time, and then somebody be like, you're victim blaming. But this is sort of like, you can't wear the mini skirt in the alley because it increases the risk of this. People who you see online, who is trying to position themselves above a group in the middle of nowhere, don't go out there with them people when it looked like a cult.
Yeah.
And when people are telling you this is a cult, don't do it.
And here's the thing. There's a difference between, if you do it, then it's your fault, right?
Right.
And trying to prevent a thing from happening to you, right? So, if you go do it, it's still not your fault. It's the fault of the person who did the thing.
Right.
But if you can see it's looking like a cult, let's try to prevent it from happening to you by keeping you from going out there.
But it's complicated when it comes to things like this or a cult, because you join the group and then you accept the values of the group in terms of the punishment for actions and all of that. And then it's like, well, you wanted this.
Well, and the people even on the docuseries were saying, hey, I would hear smacks, I would hear hitting, and we would see bruises and stuff. But I was saying, and they would think to themselves, why won't she act right? Why won't she get herself together?
Exactly.
Because that was viewed as basically almost a moral failing, right? A failing to adhere to the standards of the group.
And it's like, you
deserved it. That's what they were saying.
You coming up and you see this in the first moments that you're there, the first days or whatever. you're not all the way, as your boy would say, at the end of indoctrination at that point, right? You're still in the beginnings of it. But it's sort of a whole bunch of situations where I think of where these sorts of things happen. But with these folks, it's just that, like, what's the movie? Blink Twice, right?
Mm-hmm.
They show up and they're like, give me your debit card, give me all your money. All right, I'm going to head on out.
Right. I'm not sticking around for this isolation where if something goes wrong, I can't call for help.
I don't have my passport. I don't have nothing. Like, you're doing something.
Yeah. And so, it's just kind of nuts. I had a thought. Oh, by the way, we did cover Blink Twice. I'll link that in the description for those of you who didn't see our Blink Twice videos. It was really good.
Yeah.
Okay. So what if, they always do stuff up front that is a huge red flag to me. Like when they say, give me your debit card and give me your phone. Why? What do you, even if it's quote unquote for safekeeping, what you need my debit card for though?
Yeah. What you need my passport for? That is my identification for me. If something happens to me.
Yeah. Like that's not your responsibility. I'm cool. I'll keep it. But they didn't allow that. And in fact, one of the guys said that they charged up one of his credit cards with $800 for, what was it, like a foosball, a ping pong table? Yeah. He was like, well, what does that have to do with the group? Well, duh.
And he didn't leave at that point.
That's why they keep the money.
Right?
He left after basically in one of the countries when they had refused to get their passport stamps. The claim is that, and I tend to believe it, that the police beat the brakes up off all of them.
Yeah.
And then kicked them out the country.
Exactly.
I believe it. The police deny it in that country.
They wouldn't even say it in a documentary.
Yeah.
I'm like, why don't you say they got beat by the cops?
No, they didn't say it. Wouldn't say it. So that was when the white guy left. And the white girl who had been there left because there was a lot of, because there was heat. Because they were both like Canadian. Well, one was Portuguese from Portugal, and he was in Canada or something. But the Canadians early on, before probably any of us even knew about carbonation, they were like, "This, we got this white Canadian girl."
Well, you had a missing white girl.
A missing white girl, and then she show up in the background of the video with this black dude talking about some carbonation and Nature Boy. No, they were like, we got to do this. This is bizarre. And so then the heat started coming on Nature Boy because it was, basically the insinuation was that he was keeping this white girl against her will. Even though on camera she was like, I want to be here. He's not,
but even still after
this isn't a cult.
Even still after that, the other white dude left though.
Yeah,
right?
He left later.
The white people was, at least according to the documentary, white people was leaving. I ain't seen no black ones leaving the documentary until the end.
Mm-hmm.
But
which it was basically forced on them, except the girl who was trying to leave, that wound up being the case that took him down.
Yeah.
But yeah. So this is just a tragedy. It ought not be repeated. But I think some more people should have been prosecuted, quite frankly.
I can't do it. I don't know, like, for what? I can't. I can't reach it.
I feel like maybe it probably would be one of the men.
Maybe. So the thing is, I don't know the particulars of what happened to everyone, just from the people who were in the documentary.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not like we could be like, this person and this person didn't do nothing, and this person did these things.
Right.
So it's kind of hard to kind
of
do
in
a
other
blanket.
words, was it always the whole group that participated in like scuffing up members when they got out of line, or did they have like an enforcer crew? Because they definitely had what they called like I forgot the official name, but like Team A and Team B, because they had a layer of management, if you will, that was between Nature Boy allegedly and everybody else. So if you were on the bottom tier, you couldn't even talk directly to Nature Boy. But
it was a bunch of restructuring. So he'd get mad and be like, you ain't tier 2 no more, or tier 1. And then they just keep swapping places.
So it's unclear. So it's not crazy that there could have been like, oh, these are the two that are going to rough you up if you get out of line, right? And it's always these two, in which case, then I would be like, well, you always doing the roughing up. But it's not always
those two, because you're getting demoted and somebody else is getting demoted to that position. So it's just revolving.
Then everybody who was ever an enforcer, let's call it, then those are the people who are candidates.
With their wives with them. You know, see what I'm saying?
It's complicated. Y'all go to the comments.
You
How would you resolve this? You would send everybody to prison?
My thing is, see, you can't. That's how a lot of these things happen and a lot of the injustice happen. People just go, I hate to say it. Oh my God, I'm going to say it. Go off of their feelings and just be like, something got to happen. There needs to be some consequences. And then they just start going and trying to put stuff on people. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, that's kind of what happened with the internet detectives, right? They both were like, nah, this can't stand. I'm taking him down at any cost.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
You know, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think both of the internet detectives that we saw in here who wanted to see Nature Boy prosecuted and imprisoned, that they didn't seem to hold anything against any of the other, the members.
Right.
I could be wrong, but it seems to me that seemed to be the sentiment that came across.
When you see the video and you see the videos and you see one dude who's like, I am God, you serve me. And then everybody else just behind him, like, how could you be like, these other people need to go to prison too for being subjected to having to swallow his jizz?
Bruh, the whole thing.
You know what I'm saying?
Crazy.
Like,
ooh. Speaking of which, this is totally random, but I just happen to be looking at it. Somebody said in the comments that whenever Heit talks, it almost perfectly matches his afro in the on the screen.
What does that even mean?
Because you can see how the colors come out when you talk.
Oh, and it makes my afro smaller, right?
Well, but when you're talking, it almost lays exactly over your afro at points.
Oh, because I be so loud.
Maybe, but do it again and talk, and we'll see it.
Well, I don't really know what to say at this time.
But when you get too loud, it gets small. So you got to be just right.
I don't know how to do it.
Now you're trying and it won't do it. But anyway, I thought that was so funny in the comments. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Who said it? But yeah. So but as a documentary, it just kind of took me back and made me think about what I had seen, as I would watch videos from various people about this stuff going on. But it just really is kind of crazy. Y'all look out for your people. Watch your people.
Right.
And I have no confidence that any of these people wouldn't befall or have this happen to them again.
Yeah. But sometimes, there are these cults out there that aren't like official because the people ain't allowing you in their presence. You just allow in their social media spheres, but you're in a cult.
So give an example of what you mean.
An example?
Well, like, what do you mean? You're just in. So
I don't know. So like Beyonce isn't that great of a singer.
Whatever.
She isn't that great of a singer. She isn't that great of a dancer. She's the most overhyped entertainer in the world. Now, the people who will respond to that in a certain way, who's in the cult.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you're talking about basically the kind of parasocial relationships that people have
that and it's probably
with
stuff
famous
beyond
people
that, right?
or whoever. Yeah.
And of course, it's always going to be famous people and influencers, right? Because that's just how the cults work too.
And don't get hyped up if you're a member of the Beehive. He was making the statement to give you an example of exactly what he was talking about. All right. So if you guys saw it, let us know what you think about this documentary. We have a bedtime binge playlist. The link is in the description. Watch it when you get ready to go to bed. It'll be some videos you probably haven't seen.
If you made it this far, type brainwashed in the comments so we'll know you're one of the real ones who stick around to the end.
And be sure to check out one of the videos that's on the screen right now. And also be sure to visit axiom.app where you'll find all of our recent videos in one place with links to them back on YouTube so you can watch them here.